I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you are holding a single life-saving pill right in the palm of your hand.
Okay, yeah.
Just take a really close look at it. Maybe it's a medication you take every single morning just to manage a condition, or maybe it's an oncology drug that a loved one desperately relies on.
Right, something incredibly high stakes.
Exactly. So you look at that tiny little object and you swallow it. You just trust it. But how can you be absolutely unequivocally certain that the science behind that specific pill is flawless?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Like, how do you know that out of the millions of chemical measurements, the years of clinical trials, and, the massive manufacturing processes that led to that exact pill, how do you know not a single thing was compromised?
Uh,
By, like, a forgotten note, or a smeared number, or a mysteriously deleted computer file.
It is a profound level of trust, isn't it? I mean, we place our very lives in the hands of this massive, globally distributed system that we barely ever see. We just swallow the pill and assume the underlying data is solid.
We assume there's this invisible safety net catching every possible human error. And today, we're going to show you exactly how that safety net is woven. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. We are jumping into an incredibly detailed guide and some platform materials that were published on July 14th, 2025. And these come from Omer Simon. He is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Validfor.
Yes, Validfor.
And the topic we are exploring today is basically the absolute bedrock of pharmaceutical trust. It's something called data integrity and the ALCOA principles.
It truly is the invisible architecture of the entire pharmaceutical industry, because without these principles, without a way to absolutely verify every single data point, the whole system of modern medicine basically, well, it collapses into highly educated guesswork.
Yeah, and nobody wants their life-saving medicine to be based on a guess.
Definitely not.
So, our mission for this deep dive is threefold. First, we are going to decode the strict, almost obsessive hidden rules that keep the pharma industry honest. Second, we are going to explore what happens to those rules when a laboratory suddenly gets a Wi-Fi connection, and moves into the digital age.
The digital shift, yeah. That's huge.
And ultimately, we are going to understand that the technology, specifically the Validfor platform, that makes managing this massive global web of data even possible.
Because as the source material makes very clear right from the start, this isn't just about avoiding a slap on the wrist from government regulators.
Right, it's way bigger than that.
Exactly. This is about ensuring that every single tablet, every vaccine vial, every dose of medicine is backed by bulletproof, unshakable data.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the foundation. The acronym is LLCOA, ALCOA.
Yes, the classic 5 pillars.
Right, it stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. These are the 5 original pillars of data integrity. And as I was reading through this, trying to wrap my head around it, I just couldn't help but think of a strict chain of custody in a true crime investigation.
Oh, that is a fantastic analogy. It functions exactly like that.
Right, so imagine a detective at a crime scene. They find a crucial piece of evidence, let's say. They find the weapon, but they bag it up and completely forget to sign their name to the evidence tag.
Big mistake.
Huge. That is a failure of being attributable. We don't know who collected it. Or what if that detective waits until they go home, has dinner, and like hours later tries to write down the exact minute they found the weapon, relying entirely on their memory?
Yeah, that's not going to fly in court.
Exactly. That is a failure to be contemporaneous. In a criminal court, the defense attorney would just have a field day. That evidence gets thrown out immediately. And in the pharmaceutical world, the court is the FDA in the US or the EMA in Europe, and the stakes are arguably even higher.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the consequences of cutting those seemingly small corners are absolutely terrifying for a pharmaceutical company.
Really? Like, how bad can it get?
Well, I think people assume that if a scientist forgets a timestamp, it's just a minor bookkeeping error. It's not. The regulators like the FDA or the European Medicines Agency, the EMA, they view that missing timestamp as a fundamental crack in the foundation. It risks devastating product recalls. It risks the dreaded FDA Form 483 observation or even a formal warning letter.
Wait, I've heard that term thrown around. What exactly is a Form 483? Is that just like A heavy fine?
Oh, it is much worse than a fine. A Form 43 is essentially the FDA showing up at your facility, auditing your processes, and formally declaring, we found conditions that violate the law and your data is compromised.
Oh, wow. That sounds catastrophic.
It halts product approvals entirely. It can completely tank a company's stock price overnight. Because if there are gaps in the story your data is telling, those gaps could be hiding a simple, innocent human mistake.
Right, like a typo.
Yeah, or they could be hiding outright fraud. The regulator doesn't know, and they won't take the risk.
Which makes total sense.
Mm.
But practically speaking, humans make mistakes. Right?
Sure.
If I'm a scientist working in a lab in, say, 1995, and I'm writing down a weight measurement in my physical notebook, and I accidentally write a 7 instead of a 9, what am I supposed to do? In normal life, I just grab an eraser, fix it, and move on.
If you grab an eraser in a regulated pharmaceutical lab, you have just committed a massive compliance violation.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Just for erasing a typo?
Seriously. Under the accurate pillar of ALCOA, erasures are strictly, unequivocally forbidden. No erasers, no whiteout. You cannot obscure the original entry under any circumstances.
So what do? Just leave the wrong number sitting there on the page?
They have to use a very specific manual protocol. If a mistake is made, the person must draw a single distinct line through the error.
Oh, so you can still read it.
Exactly. The original incorrect number has to be completely visible underneath. Then right next to it, they must write the correct value, their initials, the exact date, and a noted reason for why the change was made. Let's say transcription error.
Wow. That is incredibly meticulous. I mean, it's designed so that absolutely nothing is ever truly deleted or hidden from an auditor.
Exactly. It creates a permanent visible history. And while it sounds tedious, and it is, it builds a profound culture of confidence.
I did see that.
Yeah, when quality assurance teams know that every single change is traceable, investigations into anomalies happen so much faster. It proves to the regulators that the company isn't hiding anything.
Okay, so the paper rules are airtight. That single-line strike-through is brilliant for a physical notebook. But what happens the second that laboratory gets a Wi-Fi connection?
That changes everything.
Right. When we move into the 21st century and suddenly you have digital scales, electronic lab notebooks, and mass spectrometers firing thousands of data points directly into the cloud, you can't take a physical ballpoint pen and strike through a pixel on a screen.
And that technological leap was the exact catalyst for the next evolution of these rules. Because as systems went digital, both the pharma companies and the global regulators realized something pretty alarming.
That the old rules didn't work anymore.
Exactly. Those original 5 LLCOA pillars, they were no longer enough to protect data in a computerized world.
So they had to upgrade the framework. Which brings us to the expanded version, LCOA-CCEA, which people in the industry often just call LCOA plus CO.
Precisely. They took the original 5 and bolted on 4 new digital attributes: complete, consistent, enduring, and available.
Okay. I want to wrestle with one of these new digital pillars for a second, specifically consistent.
Sure.
The source material says that being consistent demands that entries follow a logical, chronological sequence. But aren't computers inherently logical? I mean, they only do exactly what we program them to do. How could a highly advanced digital system fail at being consistent?
It's a very common assumption. We assume digital automatically means flawless. But let's look at the specific technical detail Omer Seaman outlines in the text regarding network synchronization. Imagine a modern multi-million-dollar laboratory. You have dozens of different digital devices, scales, thermometers, testing machines, all feeding data into one central server. What happens if just one of those devices has a minor internal clock sync issue?
Like it's just off by a little bit.
Yeah. Let's say the digital thermometer is accidentally set 3 minutes faster than the central server.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. So a scientist weighs a chemical sample at 10:000 a.m. server time. Then they immediately test its temperature. But because the thermometer's clock is fast, the system records the temperature test happening at 10.03, while the weight was recorded at 10.05.
It's like getting a punchline to a joke via text message before the setup even arrives. You know, when your phone loses signal and texts arrive out of order, it completely ruins the context of the conversation.
That is exactly what happens to the data. The system mathematically records step 2 happening before step 1.
Which is impossible.
Right. The chronological sequence is shattered. From an FDA auditor's perspective, that entire batch of data is now completely invalid because it defies the laws of physics. That is why digital consistency checks are so rigidly enforced.
That is wild. So it's not about the computer being illogical. It's about The entire digital ecosystem needing to be perfectly synchronized.
Exactly.
Okay, what about the others? Enduring and available seem a bit more self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Enduring means the digital records have to survive intact for decades, right?
Mhm.
Like not getting corrupted on an old hard drive.
Correct.
And available means if an inspector walks through the door, you can pull the data up instantly without needing a whole team of IT guys to decrypt it.
Yes, exactly. It requires tested data retrieval processes and secure cloud backups. But what's fascinating here is the complete pillar.
Oh, what makes that one so interesting?
Because complete means you must capture absolutely all data generated. You cannot leave blank fields. But crucially, it means you cannot delete out-of-spec results, failed repeats, or strange reruns.
It physically prevents cherry-picking the good data.
Exactly. Think about the human psychology here. A researcher has been working on a drug formulation for months. They run a test, and the result comes back slightly out of the acceptable range.
Just barely failing.
Right. In the old days of paper or poorly managed spreadsheets, a stressed researcher might just quietly throw that specific run out, recalibrate the machine, and test it again until they got the passing result they wanted.
Which is terrifying for patient safety.
It's terrifying. The complete pillar, when built into a digital system, makes that hiding of data impossible. The system captures the failed run automatically.
So they can't escape it.
Exactly. It forces the final data set to show the full, unvarnished picture of the scientific process, failures and all.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Reading through all 9 of these strict rules, attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete, consistent, enduring, and available. I mean, it sounds exhausting.
It is a lot to manage.
It's totally natural to wonder, does forcing scientists to navigate this LLCOA plus obstacle course actually improve the science? Or is this just massive, bloated, bureaucratic, busy work designed to keep government inspectors happy?
It's a very fair skepticism, but the source material provides 3 incredibly concrete, real-world case studies that prove this goes far beyond just ticking compliance boxes.
Okay, lay on me.
It fundamentally transforms how fast and how safely a company operates. Let's look at the first one. It deals with a lab transitioning from paper logs to electronic logs.
Right.
In this scenario, a lab was relying on traditional paper notebooks, and they were just getting hammered by auditors, constantly getting flagged for missing signatures, dates that were scribbled and hard to read, just basic ALCOA failures.
A total mess.
So they implemented a validated laboratory information management system, or LIMS,
And how does a lens actually fix the human error part of it?
by taking the choice away from the human entirely. The LIMS software has mandatory fields. You literally cannot proceed to the next step of the experiment until you input your unique user ID, and the system automatically applies an unalterable timestamp.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And they also scanned all the old handwritten notebooks as read-only images with searchable metadata. The result of that implementation, they cut their audit findings by 80% in just 6 months.
80%. That is a massive reduction in regulatory risk just by forcing the software to do the heavy lifting.
Huge.
Okay, the second case study goes right back to that accurate rule we talked about, the single line strike through.
Yes, the measurement error. So a lab technician noticed they made a typo when recording a pH value. In a moment of panic, they just erased the number and rewrote it.
Big mistake.
Boom, the auditor caught it, and it was a major violation because there was no audit trail.
But once the lab adopted a strict LCOA-aligned digital policy, the software replaced the need for the physical pen strike-through, right?
Yeah.
If a tech needs to change a digital pH value now, the system logs the original number, requires them to type in a reason for the change, and stamps their digital signature on it.
Yeah, it completely satisfied the auditors and prevented repeat findings.
But it's the third example that completely blew my mind, because it really highlights the human stakes here. This was a clinical study that was using paper case report forms, or CRFs.
Ugh, paper CRFs.
Now, anyone who has ever sat in a doctor's waiting room filling out medical history on a clipboard knows how agonizingly slow that paperwork is.
Imagine that slowness multiplied by thousands of patients across dozens of global hospitals.
It's unthinkable.
In clinical trials, when paper forms have missing data or illegible handwriting, the data monitors have to send queries back to the doctors to clarify. Those queries pile up. And in a clinical trial, slow data literally means delayed medicine.
Exactly. So the trial sponsors switched to an electronic CRF platform with built-in LLCOA plus checks. The fields automatically lock the moment the doctor enters the data. The metadata is strictly enforced.
And what was the outcome?
Well, the specific outcome here was from an oncology trial. They achieved a data lock 8 weeks faster than similar trials relying on older methods.
8 weeks is a staggering amount of time in clinical research.
It really is. Because we aren't just talking about saving money on administrative costs. In an oncology trial, locking the data 8 weeks faster means a potentially life-saving cancer drug gets into the hands of a patient who is running out of time 8 weeks sooner.
Yeah, it's real human impact.
It proves that strict adherence to data integrity doesn't slow you down. It actually accelerates innovation.
And it ensures that the research is deeply aligned with incredibly stringent regulations. You mentioned earlier you'd heard of a Form 483, but the source also points to 21 CFR Part 11 and GCP.
Okay, let's define those because they sound like robot serial numbers.
Right, fair enough. 21 CFR Part 11 is basically the FDA's strict rule book specifically designed for electronic records. It is the law that forces computers to be as accountable as paper.
Got it.
And GCP stands for Good Clinical Practice, which is the international, ethical, and scientific quality standard for designing and conducting trials.
Right.
When a nurse enters a patient's vital signs on a tablet right at the bedside in real time, and the system automatically timestamps it and prevents anyone from altering it, they are locking in that contemporaneous pillar. It proves the data is credible, and more importantly, it protects patient safety.
But here is the massive logistical hurdle. Trying to manually police 9 strict pillars across global R&D labs, massive manufacturing floors, and multi-site clinical trials in different time zones.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It's daunting, to say the least.
You cannot just rely on human discipline when you have thousands of employees generating millions of data points every single day.
You can't. It's impossible.
So what does this all mean? How do these massive pharma companies actually manage this without grinding to a halt?
This is exactly where a digital validation platform like Validfor enters the picture. You literally cannot scale ALCOA plus manually.
You need software.
You need a centralized digital architecture that enforces these principles under the hood automatically, so that the scientists can just focus on the science and the system handles the compliance.
So Validfor isn't just like a fancy Microsoft Word document for scientists. It's a comprehensive platform built to solve this specific industry headache.
Exactly.
The source material outlines several distinct modules within the Validfor platform. Can we break down how they actually work mechanically?
Absolutely. Let's look at their change management module first. In a highly regulated lab, you can't just decide to tweak a testing process on a Tuesday because you feel like it.
Right, no rogue experiments.
Any change has to be rigorously documented and approved. Validfor's change management provides centralized tracking. If someone requests a change to a procedure, the software physically prevents that change from going live until all the required electronic signatures and regulatory checks are completed.
Wow.
It forces the attributable and available pillars to be met before the work can even continue.
Which is brilliant. It's proactive, not reactive. What about when things go wrong? Like, let's say a giant commercial refrigerator holding a batch of vaccines accidentally drops in temperature overnight.
That brings us to Validfor's deviation management. In the real world, anomalies happen.
Stuff breaks.
Exactly. Instead of a panicked manager trying to hide the temperature drop, the deviation management system automatically flags the event. It forces a structured compliance action.
How does that look in the system?
It links the temperature drop directly to the specific batch of vaccines, and it digitally freezes that batch from being released to the public until a full, transparent investigation is logged into the platform.
Fulfilling the complete and accurate pillars perfectly?
Yeah.
You manage the deviation transparently instead of burying it?
Yep.
And the text also mentions test management and periodic review management.
Yes. Test management offers real-time traceability for all the validation testing a company has to do on its own equipment.
Making sure the scales actually weigh correctly.
Exactly. And periodic review management essentially acts as an automated alarm clock. It constantly scans the company's systems to ensure ongoing compliance, guaranteeing that the data remains enduring over its entire multi-year life cycle.
But as I was reading through Validfor's architecture, there was one detail that really caught my eye. They are integrating something called Validfor AI.
Ah, yes. The AI component.
And this creates a wild paradox in my mind. If the whole point of ALCOA is to meticulously police human data to ensure it's trustworthy, and now we are handing that policing power over to artificial intelligence, who audits the AI, How do we know the AI isn't just making things up?
It is the defining question of the next decade for the pharmaceutical industry, and it's exactly why Validfor is very explicit in the text about adhering strictly to the EU AI Act, alongside their own responsible use of AI and LLM usage policies.
So they aren't just using a black box AI that gives an answer with no explanation.
Exactly. The EU AI Act categorizes AI systems by risk, and healthcare compliance is extremely high risk. Validfor uses explainable AI.
Meaning it shows its work.
Yes, the AI might flag a deviation or suggest a compliance fix, but it has to show its digital math. It has to trace its reasoning back to the regulatory source material. By using a platform like Validfor, pharma companies can proactively align themselves with the FDA's guidance and the EU's Annex 11 GMP guidance, which is Europe's equivalent for computerized system rules.
It fundamentally shifts the entire mindset of a company. You move away from this toxic culture of fear where everyone is scrambling, doing these panic last-minute fixes the week before an FDA auditor shows up.
Yes.
Instead, you build a permanent automated culture of quality.
Because the software itself enforces the rules. On the manufacturing floor, the QA teams are reviewing digital logs that the system has already pre-checked against ALCOA principles before a batch is ever approved. It integrates the rules into the very tools the scientists are holding in their hands.
It's exactly like building the speed limit directly into the engine of a car. You never have to worry about getting a speeding ticket because the car physically will not let you break the law. You are safeguarding the data for tomorrow by empowering the team today.
That is a perfect way to conceptualize it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to you listening to this. When you hear terms like data integrity or LCOA plus DLC, it is so easy for your eyes to glaze over.
Oh, totally.
It sounds like dry, bureaucratic regulatory jargon. But it is not just a regulatory hurdle. It is the fundamental language of trust in modern medicine.
It is the absolute difference between knowing a drug is going to save your life and merely hoping it does.
Exactly. The next time you take a prescription, the next time you hold that single life-saving pill in the palm of your hand, you should know that there is a meticulously tracked, enduring, and flawlessly accurate digital trail stretching all the way back to the original lab bench, securing your safety.
This raises an important question, though, building on what we discussed earlier. As platforms like Validfor increasingly rely on advanced AI to validate our human data and ensure our compliance, how long will it be until global regulators demand a completely new ALCOA-style framework just for artificial intelligence?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a set of rules to prove the originality and accuracy of the AI's own reasoning. Who audits the automated auditor?
That is a fascinating, slightly unsettling thought to end on. The automated auditor might soon need an auditor of its own. But until that day comes, we can be grateful that the digital safety net we have today, powered by platforms like Validfor, is stronger than it has ever been. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you look at that pill, remember the invisible chain of trust that put it there.